Welcome to the first episode of Wheel of Pod.
Should be dancing.
Okay, so first episode of Wheel of Pod. We have just collectively watched the first episode, which I believe was called Leave Taking.
I think we actually, I hate to correct you so soon, but actually we individually watched first episode, not collectively.
And then rewatched
We
it.
did just collectively rewatch episode
I didn't
one.
hear a single word of it.
Oh.
Just true, but you did watch it
I
with
did
your eyeballs.
watch it. That's fair.
But we want to be correct here.
Yes, just to introduce ourselves, I am Jesse Ulrich.
I am Andy Cagle,
I am Nora Miller.
and we're here at Inner Circle Vodka Bar to have a little tavern podcast with the people.
Yes, with the people, most of whom could give two shits about the Wheel of Time. And
Two shits about the two rivers.
yeah, because Two Rivers, where the fuck's that? I feel like it's what the show is telling us from the very beginning.
Right.
But let's start off with a brief summary. I think we should all do this as a fun exercise. Let's all, each one of us, summarize what we think with the first episode, what happened in it. So, Nora, do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
I'll go first.
All
Okay,
right.
so in the very first episode, there was some angst. There was barroom intercourse, attack of the Trollocs,
Yep.
flight.
It was a good summary.
Yeah.
Andy?
I see we got a little bit of back history of a little bit of Aes Sedai and men and how magic works a little bit. We got to see the small town, where whoever the hero is going to end up being, the hero comes from, which is kind of the traditional trope of coming in and you have the wizard come in and be like, oh, we're going to take on the bad guy and they're coming after you. We got to run. And that was and it happened. They came in and they had to run.
I would say episode 1 is the first half of Fellowship of the Ring, where it's bringing the party together, and then they have to leave town. And there was some weird hot tub heating action,
Oh, yeah.
kitchen sex, and Trollocs.
I mean, I was pretty impressed because I didn't know how much sex they were going to show. And they've already showed a lot when there was none in the book at this point.
I mean, it took Game of Thrones 4 seasons to show one male butt. We got it in the first episode.
I mean, yeah, I was appreciative. It was, it was great.
Nora, how was that butt?
It was nice. It was tight.
It was tight, it was hairless.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's some personal
Well, and
preference.
Lan he had like a muscular back.
Yeah.
Like you could tell he was a warder.
It's a good looking form. It's a good physical form. I have nothing to say about it otherwise.
You don't want to tell the internet what you thought of Lan's butt? No? All right.
I just did. I said it was really awesome.
Yeah, no, I think we covered the butt pretty good so far.
All right, so basic question. Did we like it?
No.
Yes. And I think I liked it more upon thinking about it than I did the first watch.
You
I'm gonna
talked
say-
yourself into
yeah.
it.
Oh, I did.
I feel like it's a C-, which I don't know if I like that or not. So why didn't you like it, Nora?
I feel like it didn't always flow very seamlessly. I felt like it was pretty chunky. Like it was, oh, let's introduce characters. Then, oh no, let's switch to this. It just felt a little too all over the place, I guess, for the first episode. I would have liked a little more. I would like a slower build, I think is my biggest problem. I'm okay with some of the changes they made. Less okay with some of the other changes. For the most part, in terms of the first episode, I wish it was a little more flowy in terms of storytelling.
Well, and I think if we compare it to Lord of the Rings and stuff like that, even in the movies, we get a lot of like, oh, we have some more celebration, which we got a little bit of that, but you don't like, they hadn't quite set that happy scene and built those characters' relationships. They did, but not as well as I would have liked, and not nearly as much as they do in the book, which obviously I knew it was going to be to that extent. You see they were all clearly friends, but it doesn't really show much beyond that.
It doesn't show the like bonds, and maybe this is just me liking a little bit more fleshing out, but I would have been totally fine with an episode that's just character building. For the first episode, it didn't have to have a single Trolloc.
Yeah.
I would have been fine just learning about them and their home and like their culture and Moraine and Lan and
Yeah.
introducing those components before they even introduced the first battle.
I think they could have saved the battle for the second episode.
Yeah.
And like the first episode should have been character building and then like talking about Aes Sedai and like being suspicious of these new people as all, rural towns are.
Yeah.
So,
And it was rural, but I felt like it wasn't as rural. We're not going to go over the differences, but as rural as like I was expecting. Like they kind of had a little bit more idea of what was going on in the world. They weren't as like backcountry as kind of the impression you get, or at least I had, and I was kind of expecting.
They were a little more worldly, I guess, is what you're saying,
little
than you
bit more.
expected.
I guess like I didn't see that worldliness. I like they seem just as ignorant as book versions of them did. I feel like about the world, but maybe it's just because I'm giving them context I already had.
I mean,
So-
there's a lot. It's an incredibly rich world. It's a huge book series. So in terms of world building, I feel like I said, you could have spent the whole episode talking about the townspeople's small town views of Aes Sedai and their unease with Moraine in the town or land. And
The two councils, the women's council and the
there's
city
a lot
council,
more
whatever.
there that sort of sets a scene, I think, before it's just like, oh, boom.
So, what would you rate it on the traditional grade school A to F scale?
I might give it a D.
So I'm going to give it a B plus. I thought, while I kind of agree with some things, I thought the pacing was, it kept you interested. So for people who, didn't read the books, it's something where it introduced stuff, but it didn't kind of draw it out. I felt like there was the pacing maybe not completely even, but a good pacing kept you interested, and then kind of had like a good, hopefully, because we want a lot of readers who didn't read the books, like, yes, this is it. There's a battle. It's exciting now. I want to see what happens now. I want to see where this goes.
All right.
So I like that. I like some of the character development. It took me a minute to because I kept expecting more like the book. I knew there'd be some changes. There was more than I expected. And so I think it's something where when you're expecting it one way and it kind of goes the other, it kind of creates some friction. And especially for something I know so well, I gasped at one point because there was so much difference. And I mean, it's not spoilers, we just watched it, but when Perrin accidentally killed his wife, I physically reacted to that. I was not expecting that at all. I assumed she would die, but by him and creating this very dramatic backstory. But overall, I really like the characters, the actors. It made me excited to see more of it. And so I'm going to give it a B plus. Very optimistic.
Let's talk about Perrin's wife, because clearly the most, I'd say, drastic book to TV change was inventing a character that did not exist, who then was instantly murdered, to give Perrin, I guess, even more of a depressing backstory, even though his character, spoiler alert for non-book readers, gets pretty depressing later on.
I just don't see the point.
Yeah.
I don't see the point of it.
I actually wanted to know more about her.
She seemed awesome.
She seemed awesome. She seemed more alternative than everyone else. She
Yeah.
seemed like making weapons. I'm like, if I were going to form a party, I would have picked her over several of the people who came into it. I feel like if anyone else plays D&D, I've role played, I play D&D. It's almost like that. You start a campaign, you have someone everyone's really excited, and one guy comes in for creates a really cool character. You're excited, and then they're like, "Oh no, I can't do Mondays anymore," and then they're out. And this character's like, I guess they're done. That's what it felt like. It felt like there was gonna be some more promise there, and it's just like, man.
Let down.
Did anyone read the scene when he was hugging her from behind that she was pregnant?
Yeah, I was wondering that, and I didn't know if they were gonna mention it or not. Where I'm like, she did very much seem pregnant.
I'm very worried that's gonna be something that comes up later as he's dealing with this trauma.
But what's the point?
I know, right? He dreams about her later. I'm like, his dreams are already filled. There's no more reservations at the inn in Perrin's mind.
I don't want to get into spoilers and honestly, maybe it's not because I don't know where the show's going to take it in what direction. But his struggle in the book is related to what he's becoming, and he doesn't need anything else. The struggle of who he is and coming to terms with who he is and being okay with it is the struggle.
So we've kind of been talking about a lot of the differences between the books already. So I think we want to kind of move to a segment of the two rivers, so we can talk about the differences, what we liked, what we didn't.
So in a 14-book series that they're making into a TV show, we knew going in they were going to cut a lot of the fat, which there is plenty of fat to cut.
There's so much fat to cut.
Honestly, I don't remember. I can't tell you if something happened between book 4 and 10. I know it happened, but I can't remember when.
That's where the fat needed to be cut. The first 3 books, I feel like, are pretty solid.
Yeah, they are, because they're good.
It's as he starts to It's the later books
Yeah.
that start to have way too much.
So we
way too
watched
much.
all 3 episodes. Episode 3 is where they cut a lot of fat and where I think they should have in the book, which is the traveling. There's a lot of traveling where they kind of like, it almost seems redundant. And they did do a job that's where it needed to be done. I definitely think that they could have stretched this one out because this is one of the most memorable scenes. So some of the things that were, let's talk about what was added that was not originally there.
Parent's wife.
Parent's wife was one of them. We had the mikvah scene.
Yep. Kitchen sexy time.
Yeah. So there was actually, they aged up the characters.
Yeah.
So that is new. That's different.
Matured them.
It may mature, but with a series like this, it makes more sense. We had the it felt like sexual tension between Lan and Moraine. You had the actual sex between Rand and Egwene. And if you don't know, they're supposed to be teenagers in the books, and a lot of that is
teenagers don't have sex.
and they do. But what's interesting is you get a lot of the books, especially the first book, is all 3 characters just being really unsure about girls, and they're very shy about it. And they're like, "Oh man, I wish I knew what to do around women." Like,
it's cute.
And then they would name one of the other ones, which was cute. And when you're 16 and you see it, even though everyone's very unsure of themselves, you see like, "Oh man, I'm really unsure, but I wish I was like Perrin." Because Perrin knows what to do around women. Perrin's like, "I don't know anything about women. I wish I was like Matt." It goes on like through the entire book.
Yeah, Perrin talks about how Rand knows what to do with women all the time.
Oh, but they all do.
They all do,
and
none of them know.
Thing.
And it's all about confidence. Of course, you get to see in their heads, which you can hear, but like everyone seemed fairly confident. Like Matt seemed more of like the confident with women, like hit on them. Mm-hmm. The hate comes later on. Perrin was married, and Rand had sex right away.
And confidently, it wasn't even like, what are we doing here? It was like, I've done this before.
He knows where it goes.
He's like, as soon as the parents are like, let's give them some privacy. It was like
which is
weird. You
weird.
can't just throw a woman up on a counter and make love to her just willy-nilly. Like,
no, that was your first
practice.
time. That was clearly their first time.
Yeah.
Not practiced at all.
Not practiced. So we had the ritual with the baths, which was not there.
So Nynaeva's Jewish. Canonically Jewish.
Canonically, we're calling it right now. That was a mikvah.
That was
And for
a Jewish ritual bath.
What is that?
A Jewish ritual bath.
Yeah.
Where you probably can tell more about it, but basically, traditionally at certain points, women come and go into a ritual bath. It's on women only. It's a
No, I mean not non-women. Men and women can both use it. But
together?
No, not together.
Not together.
But
Ooh.
it has more uses for women than it does for men.
That's
Why?
true.
For the reasons you can imagine.
It's mostly
sexism.
Yeah, well, sexism and a menstrual, you have to be clean.
Yeah.
In Judaism, you're not. You're during that time of the month, you're considered unclean, and the mikvah is something to spiritually cleanse you.
We should point out this is definitely more of a like observant Jewish practice and not a like reform Jewish practice.
I understand.
That's true.
So.
But that's all I thought about when I saw that. I'm like, oh my god, they have a mikvah.
Listen, it was a sweet ass mikvah.
It was.
But
It was
again,
really nice.
Not in the books.
But we're gonna say now it's canon that that this is probably a huge spoiler, but you saw some towers that used to be buildings. This is Earth. It's it's a wheel of time. It's a wheel. Everything turns back around. But this is much farther on the wheel than our current time. So this, as much as everything else has changed, this is probably, Judaism.
It kind of 100% makes sense that Nynaeve is a Jewish mother, because that's how she acts.
She's super angry.
She is angry and bossy and violent.
It's canon now. You've heard it here first.
Yeah.
According to the show,
Nynaeve is Jewish.
Nynaeve is a Jewish mother.
Hot takes right here.
Yeah, hot takes.
The hottest takes. As hot as Egwene's mother's bread. But you'd only know that if you read the books, because we don't get to meet these characters really at all.
No, but they do talk about the bread.
They did mention the bread once. That's true.
I didn't hear the bread thing. I missed that.
I did because I caught it. I'm like, yeah, her bread is good.
Her bread is
Her
good.
bread is top notch.
Which is
She has amazing bread.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't want to move too far past the first episode,
Because
but
we were talking about Two Rivers, but then you didn't even mention Egwene getting pushed, which I feel
Yes,
like
that's
Let's
the
go
next
back.
thing that's new.
Let's go back.
Also,
Yes.
So I was going to mention that you had the ritual baths, which is new, and also instead of just braiding their hair like you would expect,
for a
especially
coming of age
teenagers, for coming
ritual.
of age,
Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
once they aged her up, it was kind of strange. But then they pushed her into a river. And tell us what you thought about that.
I thought it was really unusual. to do that as part of a ritual if you live in a small community in which every person is valuable and necessary, and you're just like randomly pushing them off cliffs like lemmings to see who survives the fall and who doesn't. It seems so bizarre.
And like even those who survive, I feel like might get pneumonia, and then they would die
There's
from
so
that.
many
Like,
things.
That seems really dangerous.
Have we
Lots of people at that point I've seen got in the river,
is it
but
their strong?
still.
Is it their strong?
What about
Methuen
spinal cord
blood or
injury?
whatever?
Does no one have a
Yeah.
concern for spinal cord injury?
No,
You don't just
because
jump
they're
off
all-
cliffs.
They're super powered because of the whatever the M places that they used to exist.
Manetheren. You really need to
Manetheren.
learn the words.
No, I don't. Like I'm a book reader. I don't need to learn how to pronounce anything.
All right, so I think those are like the major changes, I think, so far in episode 1.
Yeah.
You have some more later on. And then also Nynaeve gets captured. Is new.
Yeah, and
So
Sev just,
let's
you know,
talk about
doing her job.
what
Wait,
wasn't there.
I do want to go to one thing that was to me the most important change that I disagreed with, which was almost a throwaway line, but it's Nynaeve being mad at Moraine because she has this impression that Aes Sedai are haughty and snobby, and some lady who raised Nynaeve went off to study at the White Tower, and they turned her away because she was poor and she was dressed in raggedy clothing. And that is totally not how the Aes Sedai are snobby for way different reasons.
Right.
But like the good thing that I always liked about the Aes Sedai is you could be a queen or a pauper, but in the tower it was all about strength.
Yeah. But 100% bitch. But you could be
100% bitch,
Yeah.
100%
You could be as
snobs.
terrible as you wanted to, is
Yeah.
how powerful you were. It didn't matter how much money you had.
And
Yeah.
so I felt like that has not, like, it changes almost the whole Aes Sedai.
Well, and this is kind of my point where I thought it wasn't as backwoods as I expected to in the books, because Aes Sedai are not seen or heard of, and so the fact that they're almost mythical.
Yeah,
And-
they're like
and,
in stories.
and in stories, they're the ones who take advantage of people. You can never trust them. So when you come, you don't want to be an Aes Sedai. So coming from the village, going and wanting to be one, and them showing up, they're like, "Oh, it's an Aes Sedai," and then like joking about doing magic and stuff. I'm like, "Oh no," they were like scared of it. Like it was like, "No, don't tell me." And so that was the friction. Was that, they had these like bad impressions of the dragon and of the Aes Sedai because they're so backwards, that just the thought of it, instead of everywhere else where they go to the tower, there was like, no, don't do it. And that was the friction caused. We learned, I guess, spoiler, that Nynaeve can listen to the winds, that clearly she could have gone. He kind of mentioned it. But there's a reason that she didn't. And so instead of it being the reason they had in the books, they had to invent that class reason, which I thought was weird.
Yeah, I just don't think it changes suddenly the whole system of Aes Sedai. And so now I'm wondering where you're going to go with that.
And that's, and that's why I don't mind some of these changes, because it doesn't make sense to me because I know all the rest of the books. I'm like, how are they going to go with this? But I also think that this is kind of like, okay, now you're taking me on an adventure. Once I got past the changes, I'm like, okay, where are you taking me? How's this going to be different? How are you going to put, a spin on it that's more of a 2020 spin and not a 1986 spin, which is like around when the books came out the first time.
Well, so I like to compare it to a Fellowship of the Rings change, right? So when you read Fellowship of the Rings, I always forget how long Frodo stays in the Shire before leaving. He stays for another like 20 years before beginning his ring adventure.
Oh, totally made sense that they
Totally
cut
makes
that out
sense
in
to
the
cut
movies.
that. Like get him, like it's an emergency. Like let's get going.
Let's hustle.
Here they went a little too fast. Like why would these four kids, young adults, believe that the Trollocs are after them, and to instantly follow someone who they were raised not to trust? It seemed too quick.
Yeah, part of like the thing about Aes Sedai is like you can't trust them. Like they can't lie to you, but you can't trust the truths that they tell you.
And I would say even if they get rid of that, like even if the TV show changes that, and maybe the Aes Sedai are more whatever.
I mean, they were
reason.
still hated. Like they were known and
They
hated.
still sort of felt kind of hated. But let's say that's
There
not the
should be
case.
some hesitation. Like the
there's
parents shouldn't be
no-
like, yes,
They were
run
like,
away.
wait, they were
later.
like, see ya,
Bye. Au revoir. Au revoir.
get the fuck out, Like, it just didn't make sense. And I just sort of feel like for spending all this money, I don't understand what they're trying to accomplish.
So, is this a good time to do our letter? Our letter to whatever the character's name is. I'll remember it in a second. The mistress of the novices.
And that's me?
Yes.
And
yes.
so what's the...
So can you read? We got a scroll from a novice out in the world who had a question about this first episode.
Okay. Mistress, a question regarding the use of the one power. Is it permissible to use the power for one's own comfort or gain? If, for example, one's bath water could be a little warmer, could one use the power for heating it to a nice, relaxing steam? Certainly, a man could not be trusted not to abuse the power for his own gain, but what is permissible for a powerful yet disciplined woman? Gratefully, a novice. Well written.
Beautiful handwriting. So what is the answer to this query?
So again, they're changing things up in the TV show, so I don't know where they're going to go with it. But in the books, it's totally okay. Like, they use the one power to start their fires in their rooms or to dry themselves. Like, that comes up. So you can absolutely, like, it's the benefit of having access to the one power is to use it for yourself as well. There's no rule against it.
No, but I do believe, and maybe the show's not going to do this, but in the books, there's an addictive property to it. Like, you don't want to take in too much. You don't want to overuse it because
you don't want to take in too much all at once for it to, like, essentially you'll what is it you do with drugs when you take too much? Yeah, OD. You don't want to OD on it. Thank you, Andy.
You forgot the word overdose.
Overdose. But it doesn't mean, like, the girls go around holding the power for days and weeks even, like, and it doesn't do any damage. I think it's about the quantity of that they're, I guess, holding within themselves.
And I wish I had the technical ability to, like, put a poll in our video, because I would like to ask our 5 viewers, 2 of whom are mothers of people we know, whether that was a one power hand job that was given to Lan in that bathtub, because it was a very sexual hand motion.
No, here's the thing: when you cast something, you saw it. She has to physically cast the spell.
She has drama hands. Like, I heard when in other episodes going forward, and because a lot of reviewers got 6 episodes. Amazon, you know where to find us
next season.
Like, just like with other things, like with Wanda in the Marvel movies, like, some are good with acting with their hands and some are not, apparently. So we shall be prepared for that.
Are you claiming that you don't think that Rosamund Pike does good hand acting?
She's saying future Aes Sedai.
Yeah, there are other Aes Sedai who are not so good at the magic. They can't see hand acting.
And I will say, I don't recall from the books how much is somatic, how much is verbal, how much is just an innate.
So it actually comes down to a lot of the Aes Sedai and how they've taught. So some of them, like, don't need hand signals at all. Some of them do. Some of them are taught to do a fireball in a certain way. And if you don't let them do it that way, they can't do it. But some are taught where they don't have to do that kind of motion. So it's really kind of like in their head, the weaves, and they don't actually need physical. But a lot of them, the way they're taught, they even talk about in the tower where you can tell who taught people different weaves because, it's the way they cast it. They learn from someone. So if you are, in the tower and you see someone cast fireball or different spells or, different weaves, you can tell who taught them or where they learned. And so someone who is like a wilder who didn't get taught is going to do things very differently.
A little more clunky,
yeah.
but
either
still
clunky
get it done.
Or sometimes even better, because sometimes if someone isn't clunky the first time and that's how they teach that weave to everyone else, then everyone else is doing that, assuming that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, it depends. It depends on the book. And obviously that's going to be different. So just as a very quick, we probably should have at the beginning, we are all fans of Wheel of Time here. Obviously, our very first thing.
Word, but yeah.
Fans is a strong word, but we all appreciate Wheel of Time for what it is. And that's why the first thing we talk about is between the books and the TV show and why it's upsetting. But let's kind of talk about ourselves and our relationship with it.
Sure.
Because you've read it one time.
I've read it one time.
The first reread.
Yes, I've started. And honestly, I forgot how quickly, and I guess maybe in this case I should give the show more credit. The book jumps into it pretty quickly too. I didn't realize how quickly they left town. But by the way, for the TV show viewers, the name of their town is Edmonds Field. It never gets mentioned in the show.
Emmons Field. Are you saying a D? I feel like you're saying it with the D.
Emmons.
I
Emmons.
thought there was a D in there somewhere, but again, I've never pronounced these things out loud.
Emmons Field, named after Amen, but of course, over time, things get changed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Point being, you wouldn't know how to pronounce it if you were just watching the TV show. They don't mention it.
because it's of the two. They're in the two rivers.
Yes, of the two rivers.
But there's actually many.
I'm sorry,
we're not
but-
going to talk about Tar and Ferry because you can't trust those
'cause
Tar and
fuck
Ferry
those
folks.
people. No, they're saying it's the village at the two rivers, right?
Of the two rivers.
Of the two rivers is where they're saying.
I don't know. They're from the two rivers, but it's a regional thing and not. But they are originally like Edmondsville, like they were very proud of it. So I've read. So you've read it once. You're on the first reread.
Once, yeah.
I started reading it. I think book 3 in like the late 80s, early 90s, and or probably must have been early 90s, and I've would reread the whole series as the books came out, and then I've read it multiple times since then, reading it both physically, and then I started doing audiobooks and have gone through the series several times in audiobooks alone. So I wouldn't call myself like an expert, but I know the world pretty well. And so I'll remember smaller details that you might miss on just reading it once or twice, like an amateur.
You're excited enough to let us film this podcast in your bar. So you're pretty excited.
I know I love it. Like it's my favorite book series. I've been waiting for this TV show to come out for years. I was not active where I wrote a lot, but I read all the
You're now like Dragon Mount and
all of it.
The Dark Friends message boards.
Especially when the books were still coming out, and I would the theories, and I'd figure it out, and I would talk to other people about it.
Were you on the chat rooms?
I mostly read. I did not participate in a lot of chats, but then I had several friends who were reading it, so I had those IRL conversations that people were having online.
You had conversations in person with people.
With people about a book, yeah.
Huh.
My best friend since first grade. We've all read them and we talked about them. And
you guys were reading this in first grade?
We met in first grade.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm like, Andy, advanced reader.
I'm like, and that's when the first book came out. I'm like, yes, give
My
me
gosh. What a Rain Man.
You're a fucking genius over here. Call back to pre-recording. Nice.
Right, so that's...
Nora, you are now an official podcaster. You made reference to an inside joke before we started filming. So,
all right. I'm a natural.
welcome. Yes, welcome.
Yes. So that's kind of where I come from and my passion for the series.
I started reading Wheel of Time probably over a decade ago, and I quit when I found out the author had died and the series was never going to be finished. And I just picked it up again probably over 10 years later. But now I'm into my third reading of the first 10 books. When we get to the last books, then that'll be my second.
So when you got to the last 3 books written by Brad Sanderson, did you know about him at that time? Did you go back because you knew him as an author, or you just went back because the series was finished?
Yes, we'll pretend like we didn't talk about this before we started recording.
I honestly don't remember. So.
Oh, maybe I just talked about it with Andy.
I might have been somewhere else.
Yes, I became super obsessed with Brandon Sanderson after reading one of his books. And when I found out that he wrote the follow-up, that the family hired him to finish the Wheel of Time series, and I was so enamored with his writing style that I was like, okay, now I need to go back. So I went all the way back, started from the beginning, and read and finished all of them.
I think I also started reading it when I discovered Brad Sanderson, how much I liked him. I just wanted to get to his books because he's a great fantasy writer, and he does a great job ending the story, I think. But we'll get to that 8 years from now, maybe. We'll see. So many millions of dollars later.
So now we discussed why we like the books.
Yeah.
Let's move on from the differences and comparisons and the actual storyline. So for those of you who haven't read the books or just looking at it, we've made reference to it, very Lord of the Rings. And I think, especially at that time, that was the fantasy book. Kind of like Harry Potter has all the people doing Harry Potter type books, and all the ones that are popular is hey, make it similar to Harry Potter. So to bring in readers who aren't familiar with fantasy, there wasn't a lot, and to be able to capture that, it was intentional that it was created that kind of opening, that small town. Someone comes in, says, hey.
Yeah, I'm amazed it wasn't in a desert. So.
I need to rewatch the first episode, but there were moments where I was like, did they steal this straight from Lord of the Rings, this line? Not the book didn't do this, but the TV show, there was, when she was summarizing, Moraine was summarizing, and she goes, and then ages passed, and what was once
that's
known was forgotten. And I'm like, I think that's a Lord of the Rings line.
It is that Robert Jordan also stole.
Robert Jordan, but it's also from the book. That's the beginning of every book. It's the Wheel of Time, and at the very beginning,
it was not crap. What is it?
Straight plagiarizing?
No, the way you say it was a beginning, not the beginning, right?
Yeah. So every book starts with a little bit of a scene, and then the wind comes through, and it says, the wind is not a beginning.
Okay.
ages come and go. The
Important
wheel
question.
turns.
When did you first start skipping that part? The wind part.
I love it. I read it every time.
Nora, did you also read it every time?
No.
Yeah,
That's
me
why you
neither.
probably don't remember. We're like, that sounds vaguely familiar. I'm like, oh no, I read it every time.
No, but I'm going to rewatch the episode and then I'm going to watch Lord of the Rings. And
Listen,
it's the
I agree with
Galadriel
that.
speech at the beginning
Yeah.
and then Moraine does the speech where it was like, and what was, I don't know. I feel like they like wrote it down.
I'm pretty sure evil guy who for some reason is Rand's dad also does the,
Why do you keep calling him that? What has he done that's evil?
he's Roose Bolton from Game of Thrones. Like he murders a lot of people. He spoiler alert, he's the Red Wedding guy. Like he fucking kills Cad Stark himself.
You can't tell because he has long hair.
Yeah.
And this, where he has short hair in the other.
Yeah,
series.
that's him. So no, I don't trust him.
No,
Yeah.
can't be trusted.
I was like, are they gonna kill? I was like, are they gonna make Rand's dad evil? That'd be an interesting twist.
That's a,
It's a twist.
So where are we going?
So
distracted by
that's
black
kind of the impetus of this whole thing is you have these, a little older now, early 20-somethings, trying to just like live in this small village, and now they're like, hey, one of you, there's a prophecy, one of you is gonna save the world. The Dark One is coming. Let's take you out. And then they're chased by.
Spoiler alert for the TV watcher. There's a prophecy. Doesn't come up on the show yet.
So they say like he wants one of you. One of you is the dragon, and briefly talks about the dragon. There is a prophecy, and then you almost have like that chase scene, like with the eyeless and the Trollocs, like you do in Lord of the Rings. And it does diverge a lot from there, but that's like very familiar now. Lord of the Rings was the first to do it, but like now several books have kind of started that way. Small village, everything else. That's,
I feel like a lot of fantasy stories start small and build, and
Yeah.
I'm fine with
And,
that.
I mean-
It's not necessarily like formulaic or anything.
all epic stories have to start that way because they're starting from the perspective of someone who doesn't know all
Yeah.
of what's happening. But I have a technical question. Are we pronouncing them Trollocs?
I pronounce them Trollocs.
Trollocs. What
Okay.
did I say? Trollocs?
You did say Trollocs, but
Trollocs?
I was like, am I pronouncing it
Trollocs?
wrong? I've been calling them
Skrillex.
Trollocs. Skrillex, yeah. They're all just DJs. Awesome. Listen, they make some awesome DJs. Okay, so I'm gonna sidetrack us here a little bit because Wheel of Time for the longest time was referred to as unfilmable. You could not make a TV show or a film about it. Same was said about Dune, even though people kept trying. The last 2 months, we've gotten both of them. Is anything unfilmable now?
No.
Like, as long as you have the money, you can film anything you want now?
I think that's the thing. Some of this stuff is incredibly like dense, and there's a lot there. Dune, for example, they're not just worlds; they're worlds on worlds on worlds
Yeah.
on worlds, and so we'll see how they go from there. But I feel like the technology's there to make it happen. It's just a matter of like vision and money.
And so, like, but there's a sense that no matter how dense or how maybe niche
And convoluted. Some
and
of these like
convoluted a series might be,
philosophies.
if there's a fan club for said property, someone will try to make it, even, which I'm okay with, honestly, because
And it doesn't help if like, one of those fans starts a company and becomes a billionaire and starts a,
and he says like, I want
streaming company
give me a
and
Game of
says-
Thrones.
Thanks,
Yeah.
nerd.
Yeah.
I think I'm really happy that he's there and doing all this stuff. But I thought Dune was really good, and I was actually concerned because one of the things, like if you read Dune, a lot of it's in people's heads.
Yeah.
It's all very internalized, and it's what they're thinking, and so that's how you read it. And in times past where they've done this before, I felt like not as, I don't know, it felt weird, like they were whispering to themselves, kind of.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I felt
yeah.
like the movie was really good. But this isn't a Dune podcast.
No, but I'm wondering how they like a lot of Perrin's story is inside his head, and Rand too, as he's
there's a
dealing with-
lot of dreams. Dreams are a huge.
Okay, can we talk about that? Because there's no dreams in episode 1, but they come up in episode 2. I'm so far not a fan of how they're doing the dreams. They seem kind of simplistic to what the dreams. The dreams are very
Yeah.
important and I would say like complex in interesting ways in the books. And here they're just like, no, your dream is where you're already sitting, and there's a weird guy with a mask and red eyes.
Well, that's actually, so I think y'all are talking about, not to give spoilers, the characters go to the land of dreams where you go and interact. That's not what these dreams are right now.
What's the name of the land of dreams? Does anyone remember? It's really complicated. With lots of asterisks in it.
Yeah, no,
Asterisks,
I'll think of it in a
apostrophes.
second.
Yeah,
I
it's like
cannot-
chugga.
It's
I think of it
tele
Oh yeah, yeah. You're there. You're almost
there.
Telelananom.
No, it's
So close.
I'll think of it in a second.
All
While
right.
we're talking, I'll probably come to me.
I don't want to give too much away, but yeah.
In this one, this is very much, not to go back to the books a lot, but in the books, before they really learn and have any control, it's nightmares kind of fed to them by the power of the Dark One, and that's what we're seeing. So these are different than when they go to oh God, this is gonna kill me. Teleriad. I think it's Teleriad, right?
That was the DJ air horn. It'd be funnier in post.
I thought you were just muting us.
Oh, wrong. That'd be great if we get some trivia wrong. You're muted for like 5 minutes. That'd be a fun little.
If I could mute you guys whenever you're wrong.
Listen, Nora.
That would be my superpower.
For your birthday one year, I'm just gonna give you a mute button for Chris, not for me, obviously.
Be awesome. So dreams are really important. We'll see how they take them.
Yeah.
But that's hard. It's a hard trope, I think.
Dreams are hard to do.
It's hard to write and hard to put into any, because it's in your head and it's hard to get that full like experience, I guess.
I'm kind of excited because I feel like while I love hearing people's thoughts and stuff while I'm reading it, also at the beginning of the books when the characters are more annoying, it's when they're saying things in their head.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it's great and I think it's really cute at first when like the guys are like, oh, I'm not good with girls. I wish, but then like it happens a lot and just like, okay, I'm over it. And then, you know, Perrin is such a great character, but you just read in his head like every time he's unsure or every time this happens, it's like, oh yeah, if we can take that away, he's actually a much better character. Because I think if we just like, I'm a people person. I like most people. I felt like if I could like hear their thoughts, I would not like anyone. So I think that like it's probably a good thing that you cannot hear their thoughts. Even the thoughts written out.
I'm definitely gonna put an air bubble like during this part of the video and be like what Nora's and I thoughts are right now.
No, they're probably not gonna be very nice.
They're like, why are you still talking? Anyway, no.
When's it my turn to speak?
Listen, that's how podcasts work. You're just waiting for your next moment to speak. Listen, the show's got challenges, and they certainly have enough money to accomplish, to defeat those challenges. Whether they do it, listen, like you have to give. The first season of Game of Thrones also had problems. Like first Harry Potter movie had problems. I'd say Fellowship of the Ring had problems, but doesn't it's perfect.
Yeah, but I thought the whole point of this podcast was to pick apart what we liked and didn't like.
Of course, yeah.
Oh no, we do.
I've got plenty of thoughts.
No, and I think that's why we all have thoughts. But I'm actually very excited. Like it got me enough to where I wanted to go on that adventure with them. You know, after the first one, when they're leaving, I'm like, yes, I'm ready to see what happens next. And it's clearly not going to be what I expect because they're going so far. Because unlike a lot of other things where like I know they're going to change small things up, these were like pretty big, bigger than I expected. But I'm kind of like, okay, it took me a while to get on board, but now I'm like, yeah, I want to see where it goes. I want to see the adventures and I want to see how it plays out. And it could be really great and it could be not as great. I'm hoping it's good because not only am I a super fan, but like I want to see more seasons. So
yeah,
there it is, the more seasons they're going to be.
I think that's the thing. I love a drawn out story. I like to feel like that my interest in the characters grows, and that only happens if it's kind of Game of Thrones. Like Game of Thrones was really slow at first.
Yeah.
And I know that people had complaints, but you know what they hated more
the
was
end
when
of
they
it?
rushed it at the end.
Yeah.
Because it feels like unsatisfying.
I like how entire seasons of early Game of Thrones were spent like characters are traveling from one place to another. And then by season 8, they are going in one commercial break. The
dragons have flown them where they need to go.
They crossed the ocean.
Yeah. And they're like, there, and there's like, that was a week? That can't.
And then they get to a place inside land that also takes a long time to get to very quickly. Which, with little time, that's where you can cut. Like, let them get to places quickly. We don't need to see them. We've seen, I think, every great shot of someone riding a horse with mountains behind them. We've got it. Like, unless you can beat those shots, you don't need to film that anymore. Right? It's like a Batman's parents' murders. We don't need to see it anymore. We've seen it. We've got it.
So
unless there's something new.
I'll tell you my favorite part about the whole, the first 3 episodes was the fade. I thought when they showed him just in his like with the cowl or whatever, he looked a little weird, like I don't know, like something like a fishy looking person. But then they opened his mouth and it looked like the mouth of Sarlacc with like all these teeth, and I thought that looked really badass. That was the thing that I liked.
That was cool. I like how I felt like he was screaming in like frustration. He was like Damn it, water again.
So
It's always water. Also, why is it always water?
Trollocs can't swim.
Okay, can a bad guy not figure out how to manipulate people to go into water? Like, why is water
I
the
know.
one thing?
I sort of feel like I can't help but think of like a Dungeons and Dragons kind of thing. Like if I'm the super evil person with all this power to like create creatures, I feel like maybe learning from past mistakes, I would make them with a little more floatable, or maybe maybe they can swim. Maybe they have gills.
Like, or they're able to make, like a raft out of wood. There's plenty of wood there.
Or maybe they just kill 3 of their compatriots
and just float on
string
them.
them together and float on them like they're
they
nasty.
obviously eat each other, as we saw in graphic detail. Oh, can we talk about that for 5 minutes? It was very bloody and gory for a opening of a fantasy story. Usually, they're a little more PG-13 with them to start off with. And maybe it's like trying to adult them up.
I just feel like it should have been second episode.
Right? Yeah, like
Give it to me second episode.
I mean, we saw a Trolloc feasting on human flesh in the first episode.
I mean, it's implied that that's what they do.
I mean, the Urukais they dreamed of man flesh. They never actually got to taste it.
Oh, well, you don't know that. You don't know. Maybe it's like they have their Thanksgiving
like,
dinner.
Off screen, like off screen. Because like literally meat was always on the menu, boys, in Wheel of Time. So anyway, I just wanted to say that joke. So
Well done. Do you want to hit the? There you go.
that was from me.
I really want to know what the other buttons do though. So like,
So we got DJ Air Horn, we got our theme song, we got Pod for Good's theme song. I think sad trombone, clapping, and then it's another intro for another podcast I do. So
very exciting.
yes.
Let's play that one.
Yeah, this one? I think it's that one. What is that? Oh no, I'm gonna edit that part out. All right, so wrapping up. So the first 3 episodes have been released. We're hopefully still going to do an episode about episode 2 and 3, even though it's going to be Thanksgiving. There's only 8 episodes for season 1, which maybe they're doing a thing where seasons 1, season 2 are like a mixture of book 1 and 2. Like sort of like what the Expanse series did. Mm-hmm. But like, what are you hoping that they accomplish in this first season? Like, how do you want to feel once this first season's over?
You want to, I think by the end of the first season, you want to feel like stress. You should be stressed for them. They don't know what they're getting into, and the world is collapsing in on them, and they're too young and they're too inexperienced, and they don't know what's going on, and who can they trust even? Like, because that's into play. You don't know Moraine, Lan. You don't know that they're good or bad or indifferent or out for their own stuff. So I feel like you want to end it with like, you want to feel stressed as it builds into like,
I feel like you've accomplished something, but you're still not out of the woods yet.
yeah.
One of the things I'm hoping for is, so like, I've probably read or listened to the first book 15 times, but maybe more. This is not a brag. And
Wait, the clapping button?
where's the?
Trombone. I just said trombone instead. The slow clap's gone now, so.
No. So, but even with all those readings of that first book, I'm still confused by the ending of it.
That's every book for me. Like, I'm like, the book's over now? What just happened? Anyway.
Well, and just like the last, like the kind of major ending of it and everything that happens, and he tries to describe it, and it doesn't make any sense with like the rest of the rules of the magic in this universe, like in this world. It's just such a bizarre thing. And so like, I just don't understand like really how it happens or how it gets there. And it seems almost dreamlike to me, but that's not what it is. And so even with all my readings of this, it's like my least favorite ending.
Huh.
And so I was like, I want them to do it better. I want them to do better.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah. And
I don't remember that from the book. I need to go back, I guess, and reread
When
it.
we get to it, I will tell you, because like I said, I've read it so many times. And so I know like completely the breakdown of it and what's happening. And I'm just like, and every time I'm like, I'm lost.
Because for a while they were fighting one of the Forsaken each book, right?
yeah.
So was it Ishmael in the first book?
Yeah,
or-
well they ended up finding 2. But yeah, he's fighting one, and they go and fighting from like in this like cave where there's like a pool of
Yeah.
mana, and then suddenly they're like above a battlefield in the sky because they have like
Oh,
these ropes
shit,
hanging
yeah,
out,
okay.
and like but people can see them, and as they're doing
Oh,
better,
God,
then like
yeah.
the people on the like the ground are doing better, but that doesn't make a lot of sense. And like if they were that high, like how would you even be able to see them? Like unless they're like enlarged, and
Yeah,
like that makes no sense with like
in
anything we
Biggins.
learn about how the one power works.
Magic, like you can make it like a magnifying like
I
glass
thought
screen.
that's how I pictured
It's-
it, like a
yeah.
sort of.
Like sort of how I assumed they watched Quidditch games in Harry Potter, like magical like zooming in screens because they're so super high up. You have to be able to see that somehow. So
It's just it was I was always at a loss. So I'm hoping
Yeah.
hoping that's what I want to see is a clarification on how that happens, because I feel like I feel like the book's wrong.
wow, you heard it here first.
Woo.
Andy's
Woof.
favorite series. He thinks the end of book one is wrong. Listen, Robert Jordan not great at ending books. Like
That's because he died, man. Show a little respect.
No, I mean like books 1 through 10 or and 12, whatever.
Oh, I like the other ones.
I was confused by every ending in the book. I'm like, wait, what just happened?
I wasn't confused by any, but I wasn't thinking about it. So now that you pointed out, I'm
Yeah.
hearing what you're saying.
And I got the
seeing
rest
it.
of them, but book one. And so you're rereading it now.
Yeah.
So tell me what you think at the end. And are you rereading it too?
Yes.
So I am not, and I haven't, and I have not read in like 3 years. This is my last reread.
We just all need to do it again and see how we feel.
Man, but here's the thing: like with any other book series, because I love reading and I love watching the movies from it, but I always let some time pass because like even with this much time, I'm like, oh, this is different, this is different. When I went through, like I read the Harry Potters as they came out. When I went and watched the movies, people were like, let's reread before the movie. I'm like, no. Then all I'm gonna know is what's different. Instead, I got to enjoy the movies a lot more. So that's why I've kind of like held off on reading it, but I might reread after the end of the season, and then kind of do that instead of reading before. Do like a recap read afterwards.
I feel like you're always supposed to do book first. Like that's the rule, right?
Only if you haven't read the book.
Because it's the world building information that the books gives you that the TV shows always seem to cut that is handy. But if you have it in the back of your mind, like watching the show will bring some of that information back to you.
Yeah.
But if you've never read it first, then yeah, read the book first. So, except for Harry Potter 5, we all agree you don't need to read that one. So
There's some good stuff in there.
I'm one of the few people who would say do read it.
I
but
love
Well,
when
see,
the
I've never read-
Weasleys do the.
That's true. That's
the
literally
bunk-
the best part of the entire
Oh,
series.
love
so.
it. I just read that chapter.
yeah.
Do you? I've never reread Harry Potter.
Oh, I've read
I probably reread the last Harry Potter book as many times as you've read the Wheel of Time series. Like I've read it a lot.
just the last one
Yeah.
though. You don't go through the.
No, because like I remember all those pretty well. Like, but the seventh one is like an epic book. So.
It is
So
again lots of wandering forests though.
They do. Listen, you gotta travel. Like, it's on the checklist of epic,
No
epic stories.
fantasy novel can be
Yeah.
complete without forest wandering.
That's right. You gotta get
Oh, you
lost in
gotta
the
check that
forest.
off.
Yeah, you gotta accidentally hear information that you need from people you didn't expect to see.
You
know,
gotta
You gotta wind up in a tavern.
Yeah.
You got to fight at some point with other members of your party.
Yep. You get bad haircut. You know, dance to a Tom Waits song. You know, all the checklist things.
Wind up in a love pyramid with 3 women.
Yeah, Chip. Listen,
Wait, is that not
spoiler
every
alert,
fantasy book?
Spoiler alert, nope. And there's a reason for that.
I'm
'cause it's
super.
insane.
I'm wondering if what they're gonna do with
They
that.
can't. So, listen, I'm about to like mute this whole entire part because there's some spoilers ahead. Let's say Rand gets busy a lot.
In 2.5 years, I just found out. Over
But not even a lot. Like he has sex with each of the women like one time,
that is not.
except for men, which is a lot.
I feel like they imply that he's hanging out with them. Like they get him. 1 month goes to one girl.
Well, no,
Yeah,
'cause,
but
like,
they're all
'cause,
separated.
Like
They're all
One
over the
month to
world.
men. 1 month
no,
to.
the princess, like he was having sex with all the other ones but her, and she was getting real pissed about it. And then they do, and they can.
And then she gets
they can-
pregnant.
And,
Literally, they had sex once.
Literally get pregnant, but they can all feel it when she does have sex. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? I'm gonna cut all this out. Don't worry.
Men,
about
he
it.
has sex all the time.
Yeah.
But Avienda, I think it's only a handful of times.
What's the Aiel lady's name? I couldn't.
Avienda.
What was that?
Avienda.
Yeah, Avienda.
I'm never gonna remember that. It's got listeners, watchers,
Listen,
viewers,
listeners, this
it's
is gonna get
it's
cut
got
anyway.
A lot of more letters in it than what he's pronouncing.
Avienda. Avienda.
It's like
What's
15 letters
the
long.
Queen of Andor's name? Or Princess of Andor that becomes Queen of Andor?
Oh,
E. It's another E.
Morghese is her mother. That's the one I'd hook up with anyway.
Interesting.
Yeah,
It's, um,
she's got. I think she's got MILF qualities.
Oh,
so.
yeah. Margase is a MILF. You heard it first.
Yeah, a quilf.
I always liked Min.
I was like men too.
I feel like they did her wrong in the series. I feel like for a while they just forgot she was there, and they're like, "Oh, let's give her something to do."
Yeah, of course he totally forgot. Like he has a lot of characters, like thousands of characters in these stories. But anyway, but at least Min is in season 1 according to IMDb, so
We'll
there's that to
see.
look forward to.
Which is kind
They
of
skipped
too
Baelorn.
soon, I think.
No, I mean she shows up in the first city they show up to in the book.
Oh.
Like I've already met Min
Yeah,
once.
but they've already
You're
skipped
right.
that part.
That's true. So where are they gonna put her anyway?
Baelorn.
Baelorn?
Baerlon.
Baerlon. Thank you. Baerlon. I'm like, that's right.
Beerlon?
Baerlon.
Baerlon.
That's where she's supposed to
Egwene.
be.
Egwene.
The more times you say it, the more
we're-
wrong
we're-
it sounds.
Just say it 5 times.
Egwene.
It's hard to say the G part in that name. Anyway,
Is it?
it is for me. Nora, thank you for being our first of a rotating roster of third co-hosts.
My pleasure.
And Andy, thank you. I'm glad the bar eventually emptied out, not for your sake, but for sound quality's sake.
Yeah.
I think
It was good. I think you have like some of that background music, and like it's like you feel like you're in a tavern.
Oh,
I feel like
it
I'm in a
works.
tavern. I'm drinking like I'm in a tavern.
We're getting the thumbs up from my wonderful audio engineer.
I think the next episode should have someone that's never read Wheel of Time.
All
I would
right.
love to know. I want a fresh perspective.
That's a good idea.
I need someone that's into the stuff but never read the book.
All right, we need to find someone who's okay being on camera to do that. So
Yeah.
call out to our nerds.
Volunteers.
We all have our like one thing we didn't get into. Like I still have never seen Blade Runner all the way through. We all have our one nerd thing we haven't done. So for anyone out there who's a big nerd but who's not read Wheel of Time, like come on board.
we
to
need you.
Wheel of Pod. Music. Insert music here.
Pew.
Bye everybody.